Hello there, chaps and chicks. I know it's been sodding ages and I'm really sorry, but finally heading out into the countryside to answer some of your questions. So make yourself comfortable and let's get started with AndyManCam. Since I've had a Garmin, I felt like something's been missing from the channel, so I've enlisted the help of a voice which will be familiar to many of you to actually ask me the questions.
Hello, Andy.
Hello.
Sorry about sending you the wrong way so much. Smiley face. I will be asking you all of the questions from your amazing subscribers. They are a nosy bunch, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Did you pass your bike test first time round?
Yes, I did, but there was a funny story that goes with that. I was actually a bit of a cheapskate and I booked myself in for a course to get a restricted license, but just meant that I wouldn't be able to ride anything bigger than about 400cc on the first day of the course. We spent the day on 125s. At the end of that day, my instructor looked at the size of me and said, "This bike's too small for you. Let's stick you on a 500, let you ride around the car park a bit, see how you get on with it." Did loads of U-turns, did the old figure of eights and stuff around the cones, and the guy just said, "Yep, right, tomorrow you're going to be riding the ER5. Second day of my course, spent all day on the 500, and then the third day was the day of the test. And because I took the test on the ER5, I automatically got fully unrestricted license. Bonus.
How many kilometers are on the Versys now, and will you be selling it anytime soon? If so, which is at the top of the leaderboard?
It's actually got 79,800 kilometers on it at the moment. I guess you can surmise for yourself. I have sadly been thinking about selling the Versys, and I guess the question of which bike is at the top of the leaderboard is relatively self-explanatory.
Have you thought about a Versys 1000?
I have considered a Versys 1000, but to find a good one without astronomical mileage, they were just coming in at about 50 to 60% more than I paid for this phaser here, which I just couldn't afford.
If the Versys wasn't even a thing, what bike would you have?
Throwing myself back to when I was looking at the Versys, next on the list was actually the Yamaha TDM 900, purely because it was roughly the same sort of size, had a nice big torquey twin, and I think they look quite cool as well.
Of all the bikes you've ever ridden, including the review bikes, etc., which bike has been your favourite and why?
I think it's pretty close actually, because almost all of the bikes that I've ridden I would happily have. I think up till now it's been the Tracer 900. It was just really exciting, the styling is really edgy, the motor was fantastic, it had some cool features like the LED headlights, the screen wasn't terrible, which is something I've not experienced very much.
What was the first bike you owned?
It was a black Kawasaki KH100.
How does your complete bike history look? Make, model, for how long you rode all the bikes, and how do they all compare to the Versys?
My first motorised two-wheel vehicle was a Gilera Runner 50cc, which I had at university. After that, I bought the AH100, which I had for about 3-4 months before I passed my test, at which point my dad lent me his Yamaha XS400 SE, which was a little bit awesome. Stepping up from 100cc to 400 was quite an upgrade. I had that bike for about 6 months, because as I said, it was just a loaner, until I bought my first big bike, which was a Kawasaki ER5. I kept that bike for about 2 years, went touring in France on it one summer, absolutely loved it. And then unfortunately I had a bit of a break from biking because I moved into the centre of London and I just couldn't afford the cost of having a motorbike. I broke that motorbike fast with Polly the Phaser, and I had Polly for almost 2 very happy years. That's when I bought the Kawasaki Versys, which is a 2006 model, and I had the Versys for almost 3 years actually, before the urge for more power and less vibrations led me to buy this Yamaha FZ1N, also a 2006, which I plan to keep for as long as possible because so far I absolutely love the crap out of it. But how do they all compare to the Versys? With the AH100, there's no contest. It was a gutless weasel that smelt of oil and sounded like a lawnmower. The XS400 SE was super loud. Everybody knew that I was coming all the time. It had awful fuel economy. The thing just sprayed unburnt fuel out of the exhaust pipes, it seemed, and cornering wise it was a lot heavier and a lot more reluctant to even engage with corners than the Versys is. The ER5 in many ways was very similar. It had a really tractable, punchy 2-cylinder 500cc engine. It was relatively comfortable. I actually toured in France 2 up. Stick a proper fairing on the front, I guess you could call it a baby Versys. Versys. The Phaser 600 was a lot smoother, a lot more flickable, and at the top end, a lot faster than the Versys. The Versys itself was exactly as good as the Versys in every way, and the Yamaha FZ1N, well, remains to be seen, I suppose. So far, it's a night and day difference with the smoothness. It's got shed loads more power than the Versys.
Do you ever think of splurging on a ridiculously expensive modern bike, BMW, MV, Ducati, etc.?
I don't actually. For me, just getting something like this, I was already so excited. This bike has everything that I need to get my blood pumping, plus with the amount of tinkering, modding, just general fiddling that I like to do on my bikes, the idea of getting something really exotic and expensive just, it kind of fills me with a bit of fear that I'm going to break something I can't fix, or parts are going to be incredibly expensive. Just no.
Mr. Moneybags, a mysterious subscriber, offers to buy you any motorcycle you wish.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moneybags.
On the basis that you ride it and don't just name some crazy expensive one you then sell. What do you pick?
I think completely contrary to what I just said, I'd choose something utterly ridiculous, but a little bit awesome, like a Ducati X Diavel, but with every single upgrade and carbon fibre option available, and then I'd try and do a tour series on it. I think that would be quite interesting.
If you could ride any bike on any road, what would they be?
I think I would take said Ducati and I'd ride it up the Pacific Coastal Highway in California. I've driven it once in a Mustang and it was absolutely breathtaking. Beautiful road with stunning scenery, but I'd really like to go back, do that road again, with Italy's motorbike equivalent to the muscle car.
This is a sort of theoretical desert island type question. If you had to choose 3 motorcycles currently available, which would they be? Also, the 4th is already chosen for you and it's the KTM 1290 SD, so choose another 3.
That's a toughie. I think one of them might actually be a Triumph Tiger Explorer. You've got to have something a bit adventure-y, haven't you? And I find the BMW GS series just a bit... Everybody's got one. They're just so mainstream, darling. For something light and flicky, just for razzing around for fun, I think we're coming back to the Tracer 900 again. So, the 3rd slot goes to... I think I quite like the idea of an XJR 1300, actually. Just something a bit retro, stocky, powerful, lazy. Yeah, that's it.
Have you ever ridden a bike with leather brakes? Have you ever even seen a bike with leather brakes?
Oddly enough, when I read this question, the answer was no to both. Since then, I actually went to an old-timer convention here in Hamburg, at which I actually saw a couple of motorbikes with leather brakes.
What is the worst thing you've done on your bike?
Crashing it, I think. I don't mean when it slipped out from under me on the Ford, but I mean, spoiler alert, when I crashed it on the first day of the Croatia tour. Felt pretty stupid about that.
What do you do for a living?
I actually currently do 2 things for a living. For one, which I'm sure will explain a lot of things for many of you, I'm a freelance lighting technician in the theatre, which means I take care of all of the technical lighting parts involved with the theatre. The freelance part of that means that it's not regular and it's often away from Hamburg, so it's slightly less than ideal. For the other part, and this will likely explain and baffle in equal measure, I'm a musician. And for the most part, that means I'm a wedding singer. I'm the guy that sings the soppy songs in the church as couples declare their undying love for each other. Partially because it's actually very enjoyable and far better than working in an office, and partially because, other than being world famous, it seems to be the best way that a musician can make money nowadays. Now, of course, I'm not just a wedding singer, and it may surprise you to know that I have actually written and recorded my own album. And whether you like it or not, one of the songs from said album you've already heard at least once, because it's the theme tune to my entire channel. Should you so wish, you can actually get hold of a copy of this album on CD. Just so happens I've got about 600 copies in the cellar, and in one fell swoop you can get a glimpse into the secret identity of AndyManCam, help support my musical endeavours, and free up a bit of space in my cellar.
What were your past jobs, like when you were still in school?
When I was in school, my first proper job was working at a little metalworks press, where I had such enjoyable tasks as spot welding a round piece of metal to a square piece of metal 1,000 times a day. Oh, that was a terrible job. Then I did a bit of fruit picking in the farms around Cambridge. During university, I had a job picking litter and trimming the grass on the central reservation of the M11. I worked at Tesco's in the customer services desk. I worked for about 18 months for British Telecom as an operator. So if you dialed 100 or 999 from the North London area between 1997 and 1998, there's a good chance you might have spoken to me. When I went to university, I got a wonderful job one Easter, cooking and serving hot dogs from one of those horrible little hot dog vans on the seaside. But after I finished my time at university in Bournemouth, I then went back to Cambridge, got a job as a herpetological nutritional logistical facilitator. I drove a van delivering live insects to reptile shops. That was a weird one. After that, I actually finally got a proper job using the skills that I'd studied at university, and for nearly 5 years I was a product designer at Scale Extric, designing actual products which ended up in the actual shops to be bought and played with by actual children, which was awesome. Developing products for a company whose products I'd actually played with as a kid. But eventually I decided I wanted to go and do some product design stuff in London. I quit, moved into London, then the financial crisis happened, all the jobs disappeared, and I was kind of left out in the cold a little bit. And it was at that point I took my guitar and I started busking on the streets of London. The streets led to the open mics led to pub gigs, club gigs, private functions, and eventually weddings. And it was then that I stumbled into working at the National Theatre. To start with, just as a roadie, I just had to lift stuff, carry stuff. But then my boss realised that I wasn't a complete plonker. Steadily he hired me for more stuff, gave me more responsibility, and gradually I learned on the job what it means to be a lighting technician in the theatre. When I came to Germany, I essentially reset the counter because I had no relevant experience and I couldn't speak German. So to start with, I packed boxes in a warehouse for an online shop. After that, I was a DHL delivery driver for a month. I would like to quite happily circle that one and say that was my least favourite job of all time. DHL is the devil. After DHL, I found a job working for a phone-based market research firm, which, although based in Hamburg, was conducting market research in England. And so for that, they needed people with native English accents. I was made perfectly qualified for this job. What I didn't know is that they'd slightly miscalculated how much work there was, and after 2 weeks, the survey was finished. At which point they said to me, you can stop now, or you can continue to do surveys in German. This was a pretty daunting prospect. I'd been in Germany at this point about 9 months, but I decided to treat it as a bit of a baptism of fire and just get on with it, and it really helped to galvanise my confidence in my German-speaking abilities. And then it was at this point that I felt confident enough in my German that I started to chase after the theatre jobs, and I started to try and line up more of the wedding singing stuff. And that brings us to where we are today.
Where in the UK are you originally from?
My dad was in the army, so I was born in Germany in a British hospital. We lived there for a few years, moved to England for a few years, moved back to Germany for a few years, but eventually ended up back in Cambridge where I did most of my schooling and adulting. But to be honest, I feel like a little bit of a nomad because we moved around a fair bit. My dad's from Norfolk, my mum is Welsh, so a bit of a mongrel, I suppose.
How old are you, Mr. AndyManCam?
I am 27 years old with 10 years experience.
How did you come to live with Z Germans?
Well, that's easy. I stupidly allowed myself to fall in love with a German girl.
How do you find that Germany compares to your previous abode? Is life there better than in the UK?
In many ways, it's very, very different. The thing that's really shocked me about Germany is the amount of paperwork you have to do for everything, and how the idea of Germany being an efficient country is a complete myth. It's just shocked me how long everything takes. Also, coming from a country of prolific queuers, I find it astounding that the public here seem incapable of queuing. Something that still happens, and it's always the small things that seem to be the worst, is that when I'm in the supermarket and there's a big queue for the checkout, quite often they'll open another checkout. And what happens here in Germany is that the very last person in the queue makes it their life's mission to be the first one to get into the new checkout. There's none of this, oh, you've been waiting already, do you want to go in front of me? Forget it. It's a dog-eat-dog world out here. That said, food is cheaper, beer is cheaper. I haven't once locked my motorbike up in Hamburg, and there's thousands of other bikes in the streets haven't yet been stolen, so crime is obviously a lot lower. I think the police having guns might have something to do with that. And also, as you can see, there's a lot less traffic here. I mean, in the city, sure, there's as much traffic as in any city, but out in the countryside, it's a lot easier to get out and find some space. Overall, I am happy with living in Germany.
How did you meet your GF, being she's evidently German?
We met in London, actually. She was a tourist visiting a friend, and I was performing at an open mic night in Camden. The only places available in the pub were at the table next to me and my housemate, so this group of German girls sat down. My housemate forced one of them to buy my CD. Cheers for that, Harry. Although it later transpired that the girl who bought the CD didn't actually have a CD player. She's actually just a bit into getting attention. But the long and the short of it, me and the girlfriend on that first night didn't really talk to each other at all. But the following week, I went along to the same open mic night, and lo and behold, this group of German girls were there as well. So I played my songs and then tried to talk to the one particular girl out of the group who had caught my eye as being the only one of the group who hadn't hadn't actually tried to talk to me. But we were doomed, as I was tragically cock-blocked by other partakers of the open mic festivities, and so we went our separate ways. It then transpired that she had taken my CD and through a little bit of online detective work, contacted me through Facebook saying that she was going to come along to my next gig and maybe we could actually talk to each other. But of course, seldom does the path of love run true. She got sick, couldn't come to the gig, and then had to go back to Germany. But like modern day pen pals, we kept in touch, and then finally, after several months, she came back to London and we actually managed to go out and have a drink together. Of course, it was a bit of a rock star date because it was tacked onto the end of a gig I'd just played, so I had VIP status and free drinks at the bar. It's a surefire way to impress the ladies. And of course, it meant that she believed in the lie from the very beginning that I was a successful rock star.
Why Hamburg, not Köln, Berlin or München?
Because the girlfriend was born and grew up in Hamburg, so this is her home. Well, not this is the seaside. This isn't Hamburg at all.
Was moving to Germany a hard decision? Do you not miss home and friends, etc.?
It was the hardest decision of my life, and naturally I miss family and friends. I've had to leave everybody behind. Although Hamburg isn't a million miles away, it's still not easy just to meet your mates down the pub for a pint on a whim.
How was learning to speak another language?
Learning to speak German has been quite a challenge. It's an incredibly complicated language with what seems like a million different rules which change for every different circumstance. Pretty much every native speaking German that I've spoken to has said to me, "Oh, I feel sorry for you, mate. I wouldn't want to learn German as an adult." But that said, I'm getting there. I can speak to people, I can function in society. It's hard work, but I'm starting to feel like I'm winning.
How have you liked/coped with the transition, especially riding-wise?
Well, obviously the biggest difference is that we're riding on the wrong side of the road here. But to be honest, I kind of got used to that really quickly. Otherwise, everything is very similar. Speed limits are mostly about the same. The only thing that upsets me sometimes is the whole rechts vor links, which means right before left. I have to give way to the right here. Whereas if there was a diamond-shaped sign with a yellow centre and a white border, that means that I have right of way and everything turns on its head.
Brexit. Discussed from your point of view.
I have absolutely no clue whatsoever. It's changing every day. Nobody knows how Brexit is going to affect people in my situation. We don't even know how it's going to affect you lot in the UK, for God's sake. From my perspective, all I can really see for sure is that the whole thing is an absolute embarrassing shambles.
What is your favourite German food?
I think this is a bit of a cop-out answer because it's more of a dessert, I suppose. But the thing that I love and look forward to every year is Schmalzgebäck, which is like little cushions of deep-fried donutty joy covered in powdered sugar that you get at Christmas time on the Christmas markets.
Did you have to take the German riding test when you moved there?
Nope, no new tests needed.
Have you ever been on TV? For example, a talent show?
Clearly a question from somebody that's been following my other YouTube channel. The answer is yes, I have actually been on TV. I was on The Voice of Germany and I got to the stage where they have the 4 chairs. I sang my song, nobody turned round, and then they showed 5 minutes of video of me dicking around doing a Tough Mudder event. Not quite the highlight of my life, but, you know, part of the tapestry, I suppose.
Has her indoors got on the bike with you yet, Andy?
No, she hasn't, and she isn't going to. But for me, that's okay. It just means that now, when I go out on the bike, that's my time, that's my space. Plus, the bike always handles a lot better with one person, so suits me down to the ground.
Is your GF afraid of riding bikes? If so, what do you two do together as a couple, and does it then bother her all the time you spend riding and working on your channel?
What do we do as a couple? Not talking about that. Being a freelancer, I have lots of weekdays free. So this means that I can get a lot of the stuff that I do on the channel done on the weekdays when she's at work, leaving weekends and evenings free for us to do the coupley stuff. For example, it's now 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon, and by the time she gets home from work, I'll be sat at home on the sofa like I never even went anywhere.
How the hell do you get away with all these solo tours?
Mostly, I think it revolves around either being clever, lucky, or both with the timing. For example, during the first Euro tour, the wet one, we arranged it so that while I was riding through the torrential downpours of the Pyrenees, she had a long weekend with one of her best mates in Paris. And then last year, with the trip down to Italy, she flew down and met us there, stayed for a week, so it didn't feel like I was gone for a long time then either. And then this year, when we went to Croatia, she had a long weekend in Amsterdam with her best mates. So yeah, I do my thing, she does her thing, and then we come back together at the end.
What make is the jacket, and where did you get it?
Oh, this old thing? Get out of town. This is actually a Belstaff jacket. I bought it about 12 years ago from Infinity motorcycles. As far as I know, just after that, Belstaff went tits up, and then when they reappeared, they were more of a fashion brand than a real motorcycling brand. I think this is the best leather jacket I've ever had. I absolutely love this jacket.
What brand is that new helmet?
The helmet is a Nishwa Enduro Carbon, and I have to say, it's bloody brilliant.
What gear do you wear? A full rundown would be deeply appreciated, if possible with a short summary of your experience with each piece.
As I already mentioned, we've got the Nishwa Enduro Carbon helmet, which is incredibly light. Vision through the massive visor is fantastic. As you can probably hear, it's really quiet and it's really, really comfortable. And the visor, this is a really underrated feature. For times like now, when the sun is low in the sky, the shade it provides over your eyes is a godsend. The jacket, again, this is a Belstaff jacket. It's really comfortable. The quality is fantastic. It's got these vents on the front and the back, and also rotatable vents on the shoulders so you can let airflow through. Although in terms of airflow, this jacket comes a distant second place to the other jacket I've got, which is a richer AVS. That jacket has removable panels on the whole underarm section. In high temperatures this summer, it was fantastic. When you open that thing up, it's like you're wearing a t-shirt. The trousers I've got are relatively cheap. They're made by a company called Gear. I've crashed in them twice and lived to tell the tale without even so much as a bruise. Although now, after, 4 years, the lining is completely falling apart and they really do need to be replaced, unfortunately. These are actually Daytona boots, which normally would be way out of my price bracket. Oh, I got cramp from doing that. But one of them had a broken zip, so it was for sale in the lowest flow mark for €100 the pair. So I bought them. Within 10 minutes, I'd put the zip back together. Everything's been great ever since. And they were beautifully comfortable all the way through the Croatia tour. Again, despite the high temperatures, the Gore-Tex membrane in them means that my feet never felt sweaty, and on the few occasions it did rain, the water didn't even come anywhere near getting to my socks. The gloves I've got, at the moment I'm wearing a pair of Held touring gloves. I can't remember the model right now, but I'll flash it on screen. These the missus bought for me for Christmas, and they are fantastic. Right now, the temperature is about 12 degrees, and my fingers are sweaty. My summer gloves are those Vanucci Batman-looking things, which I absolutely love, but sadly, again, after 3 years of solid use, they are starting to show a lot of wear, and I think I might actually have to look into getting some new summer gloves for next season.
What type of seat cover is it that you have, and is it comfy?
I don't actually have it on this bike, but I know the seat cover you're talking about. It's made by a company called Allen. I bought it from M&P about 12 years ago. I'm not sure if you can buy them anymore, but it is very comfortable, and it was considerably cheaper than an Airhawk.
What made you start vlogging, and what do SWNBO and your parents think of you doing this all the time?
I was staying at my very good friend the Binkelhofer's place, and he introduced me to the world of Baron von Grumble. I found it all very entertaining, very enjoyable, but overall was left, as many of us are, with an overriding feeling of, I could do that. And as I am always very keen to try stuff out, bought myself a camera, started doing it. And thanks to you lot, here we are, and it seems to be going from strength to strength. At the beginning, she who must be obeyed was very skeptical about the whole thing. She thought it was a bit of a waste of time, to be honest. But then, as the subscriber numbers started to climb, the views started to go up, she's really, really supportive of the whole thing. My parents as well are also really supportive. My mum and Ian watch pretty much every video and seem to have nothing but nice things to say about it, except for when Ian wants to take the piss out of me, of course.
What comedy films, series, or books have influenced your sense of humour?
When I was younger, I was really into the really silly comedy films. Things like Hot Shots, The Naked Guns, Airplane. Just really loved that silly humour that was delivered in a almost serious deadpan kind of way. I also remember being blown away when I first discovered Monty Python. In particular, The Holy Grail. That film was just absolutely monumental. Even more silly, yet at the same time, more serious, with a healthy dollop of absolutely random. The multitude of silly characters, stupid voices, all coming from just a small group of people.
During your vlogs, many of the funny comments about random stuff, town names, random weird things along the road, etc. seem very spur of the moment and hilarious. How much of it is edited because you thought of them slightly later down the road?
I am very proud to say pretty much everything just comes straight from the top of my dome. Now, there are some times that maybe I'll just fumble the words or something and then I'll say it again, because that's TV, folks. But most of the time it's quite difficult to try and say something much later on and then edit it forwards in the video, because things like the engine noise, the wind noise, the background noise, they don't go with what's happening anymore. So most of the time I try and keep it natural, or I just cut it out.
Do you bother with storyboards or any kind of scripting on your videos? Or do you just head out with a plan of the topic and take it from there?
I mostly just go with the latter. I just head out with an idea in my head of what I want to talk about. Most of the time, there isn't even a topic with my videos. I'm glad nobody's noticed this yet. So most of the time, it's a product review or I'm going somewhere. Again, I like to keep everything natural. I like to keep it so it's just what you see is what you get. To be honest, this is probably the most scripted video I've ever done, purely because I have a long list of questions that I have to answer.
What advice can you give me on how to start moto blogging?
The best advice I could give is just be yourself. There's no point pretending to be some character or some exaggeration of yourself on the camera. If you're not yourself on film, people will know it and they won't find it enjoyable to watch. And also, it'll be hard work for you to keep that character up all of the time when you're making videos. And then on the other end of the whole process, just keep your videos snappy. Do your first run through of editing, then go back and chop out another 25% minimum. People just have no attention span nowadays. If you lose someone's attention for 10 seconds, you've lost them for the rest of that video.
What was the most entertaining motovlog you've ever watched? I mean, which actual video?
I'm actually quite embarrassed to admit because it is monumentally stupid. The video that just sticks in my mind as being the most entertaining because it had suspense, it had comedy, it had tragedy, and it had triumph was Baron von Grumble green laning on his Gixxer. I'm sorry.
Where would you like to see the channel in 2 years' time?
I think I'd just like it to be bigger, getting more views, getting more interaction.
What's the ultimate goal?
For this to be it, for my full-time job to be creating videos, creating entertainment. I would love nothing more than to have the time to wake up in the morning and think, what kind of a video shall I make today? And I'd love to be able to be doing more tours and more product views and to have a channel big enough to attract the kind of brands and the kind of cooperations that would create videos that are more watchable for you lot. And I'd also like to have the time to make the videos higher quality and therefore more enjoyable for you lot.
When you get the gold play button, will you still love us as much as you do now and reply to every comment?
When? I like your optimism. And of course, yes I will. Or at the very least, I will try my absolute very level best. I would hate to think that at any point I would lose touch with the people watching my videos because I'm making things for you to watch. I want to know what you think about them and I want to talk to you about how I can make them better.
When can we get some of them AMC stickers?
Soon. They are knocking on the door of availability. Availability.
Is bacon the best thing since sliced bread?
I think it's the other way around, isn't it? There were probably pigs before they made bread, so there would have been bacon, and then the very second that sliced bread came along, bosh, bacon sandwiches. The world is complete.
Do you like Nutella?
I absolutely bloody lush Nutella. That stuff is incredible. I like it so much that we currently don't have any in our flat because we just keep on breaking ourselves on the stuff.
Bier nach Münchener Art or de Pils?
I prefer my beer nach Münchener Art, which doesn't sit so wonderfully well with my geography because I actually live in the north of Germany, which is the land of Pils, and not in southern Germany, which is the land of the Weissbier.
Coffee or tea?
Absolutely 100% coffee.
If we lived in a world where there was no internal combustion engine and therefore no motorbikes or cars, but all the animals and critters of the earth were the size of a 4x4 and absolutely loved being ridden by humans, which animal would be your faithful trusted steed and why?
A cat. They've got perfect balance, so you're never going to fall off. They're as quick as shit off a shovel. They can jump something ridiculous like 10 times their own body height. I mean, imagine riding your bike up a wall. Plus they've got the claws, so if anything comes at you, your vehicle can actually defend you. Not to mention the camera mounting possibilities with that tail up the back. That'd be awesome for some third-person view action.
Do you have a moustache? Does it help keeping your face warm while riding?
Yes, I do have a moustache, and my moustache itself has a beard. I think it does help, actually. It maybe even helps with some of the wind reduction as well, because it's filling my helmet chin area with hair. Sometimes on the longer rides, that's a little bit itchy. I actually trimmed it right back for Croatia. Scared the crap out of my girlfriend because when she came home from work the day before I left, she thought somebody had broken into the house. Turns out she'd never seen my chin before.
Would you rather have a penis like a nose or a nose like a penis?
What kind of a question is that? I think, bearing in mind it's not the size of the boat in the water, it's the motion of the ocean, I would rather have a penis like a nose because I could at least hide that away.
How did you learn the maintenance side of motorbike ownership?
My dad was actually a vehicle mechanic in the army for about 25 years, so I grew up in the presence of a man who could pretty much breathe life back into anything that was broken. The man can fix everything. This instilled in me a healthy love of pulling things to pieces, figuring out how stuff works, repairing broken stuff. Couple that with my impossibly tight-ass nature, and you get either a recipe for disaster or a great formula for working out how to fix stuff yourself.
What's the best mod you've made to the bike?
Well, the best mod I made to the Versys was 100% hands down the booster plug. That little gadget transformed the way that bike behaved and made it infinitely more enjoyable to ride.
What is the next thing you are going to change or add to the bike?
On this bike, I've already stuck a new end can on, and in perfectly complementary fashion to what I just said, the next modification on this bike is going to be a booster plug.
Do you ever think of rebuilding an older bike?
I'd actually really love to rebuild an old bike. Last year I almost bought myself a barn find Honda CX500. They're so ugly they're cool, and it would have been a great little project for the channel.
Do you have any non-uploaded Phaser Garage videos? I could use all the help I could get.
I'm afraid not. All of the Phaser Garage videos have already been thrown out there into the atmosphere.
On your Versys, have you found a particular tyre that suits your riding style, or, to be a bit cheeky, do you put cost before performance?
When I bought the Versys, it had Michelin Pilot Road 3s on it, which, although great in the wet, in the dry I found them to be a bit skittish, a bit too much movement for my liking. When I came to buy new tyres for the Italy trip, I did hours and hours of reading, and what really stood out for me was the Pirelli Diablo Stradas. So I actually bought a pair of those, and I have to say they were fantastic. Easily the best tyres I've had so far. Fantastic considering they were by far and away the cheapest available.
Instead of a Euro tour, would you consider a bike tour holiday in Asia or North Africa?
I absolutely would consider such a tour. I think I'd have to have a slightly more suited bike to such riding.
When are you coming to the US for a meet and greet?
I would come tomorrow if it was logistically easy.
Any tips on touring in Europe in general?
I'd say the biggest tip of all is just not to do too much. Don't set your targets of your distances to travel on every day too long, because you will just destroy your enjoyment of the holiday if you're doing too many miles. For example, when we were in the Grimsel Pass, it was raining, but by the time we got to the other side, the rain had stopped, the road started to dry. Because we didn't plan too many miles into that day, we had the time and the space to turn round, go back over the Grimsel Pass and see it all in the dry. We'd have missed that if we'd have had long distance targets to keep up with. Other than that, try and take as little stuff as you possibly can, but make sure, for the love of God, that you've got waterproofs with you.
From the tours you've done to date, what was the ultimate destination? I.e., if you could only pick one place to visit again on your bike, where would it be?
I would really, really like to go back to the Grimsel Pass. It was a lot of fun, and just the views were utterly breathtaking. Plus there's a lot more passes in that area that I'd also like to explore as well.
When are you going to do a TT tour series?
A TT tour series would be quite difficult for me, to be honest, because being in Hamburg, I'm already a bloody long way away from the Isle of Man. Where the hell am I going now? And overall, I've always been of the kind of mindset I would rather be doing something than watching somebody else doing it. So to go and see something like that as a spectator, I'm going to upset some people now, but I think I would rather spend the time and the money riding down to the Alps, riding down to the Pyrenees. Hello.
Do you have eyes, ears, and possibly a nose? Are you a ginger? What amount of euros would you reveal your face? Ever considered coming out from behind the visor? Andy, why you never shows your face? Ever considered showing your face? Will you be doing a face reveal? Why do you hide behind the visor/helmet? Why do you choose to hide your face? Do you reveal your true identity? When are you gonna do a face reveal?
Okay, I'm sensing there's a bit of a theme here. To be honest, something I've thought about quite a bit. I don't really have any good answer to any of these questions, so with that in mind, and in line with the general theme of this entire video, so there you go, that's my face. So as the sun goes down over Hamburg Airport, just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you've enjoyed finding out everything there is to know about AndyManCam. Thanks so much for watching, keep them shiny, and I'll see you out there. Ta-ra!